Okay, then let us start now. Any questions or clarifications on that? Or is all clear? So I'm assuming all clear. Okay, people are still joining up, that's why I'm just holding a minute. Okay. Then he says, okay, if you are clear with these two definitions, Samatvam Yogam Uchyate and Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam, these two definitions in a great extent sum up all of Karma Yoga. Okay, we have seen that elaborately last few classes. So let us go ahead. Okay, in a couple of verses now about this, he is saying, Karmajam buddhi yukta hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinarmuktaha padam gachanti anamayam. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi. With this buddhi, attitude, with respect to karma and karmajam, the phalam that is born of karma, karma phala. Okay. He says, phalam tyaktva manishinaha. It is as good as giving up the result of action. It is really speaking not giving up results of action. But he says it is as good as that. As good as that. Why? Because you are willing to accept both success and failure. If you are willing to accept failure, it is as good as giving up the karma phalam. Though you are not really giving it up, actually you are accepting it. But as good as that, karma phalam tekta, manishinaha, this person, manana shilavan, who has mastered his mind, okay, janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gachanti anamayam, freed from the bondage of birth and death, anamayam mokshakyam padam gachanti. Tat padam yad mokshakyam shastreshu tad anamayam padam sarva dosha rahitam padam gachanti aupalakshena gachanti prapyanti praptasya praptamiti. Okay, in other words, sorry, I broke off into a bit of Sanskrit. That padam, padyate aneneti padam, that with which you know, that which is known, what is that? Called moksha. What is that? Freedom from my sense of limitations, all existential limitations. That padam, anamayam, free from any limitations, gachanti, he gains. What is that? Janma marana vinirmuktaha san. Janma marana vinirmuktaha. Generally, moksha is presented as being free from birth and death. Why? Why they are not straight away putting sense of limitations like how we are putting it in our modern teaching? For the simple reason that these are two situations where your lack of control, your sense of helplessness is maximum. Don't have control over your birth. Nature takes care of it. You can't do anything about it. Yeah, the parents may be able to do a cesarean birth or something, but you are helpless in that. You don't have a choice. Similarly, death. People who are wanting to die, death doesn't visit. People who don't want to die, death comes. So, birth and death are symbolic of our sense of limitations, of our sense of helplessness. That is why birth and death is used to represent bondage, and freedom from birth and death used to represent moksha. Number one. Number two, it's all about karma, karma phala. I am born out of ignorance. Ignorance per se has no beginning. No ignorance has a beginning. Okay? Ignorance has an end, because when you come to know the subject matter, the ignorance of that subject matter ends. But it doesn't have a beginning. It begins with beginningless time onwards. It has been there. Since beginningless time onwards it has been there. Therefore, which was the first birth, I cannot say. So there have been countless number of births, and a few of those births have been human births. In every human birth, I have done countless of karma for which I must get karma phala. Most of the karma phala comes in this lifetime itself. Some gets postponed to the next life. So countless lives. A subsection of that is still countless. So now I have countless human lives. And a small percentage of the karma that I have done has got transferred to afterlife. So how much of karma is there in my account? Countless. How many births will I have to take? How many births will I have to take to experience all of them? Countless. Therefore, there is no freedom from karma. That means there is no freedom from janma and maranam. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. It goes on. Freedom from this cycle comes when I know the truth about myself. Ignorance of myself is the cause for my birth. Knowing the truth about myself is freedom. Therefore, janma marana vinarmukta. Padam gachanti anamayam. He gains the state which is free from any limitation, otherwise called as moksha. But remember, when you say gain here, etc., it is aupacharika. Okay. There are two types of gains here. One which you all are very evident about. Apraptasya praptihi. To gain something I don't have with me right now. The money that I don't have. A partner in life I don't have. Wealth that I don't have. The house that I don't have. The health that I don't have. The fitness that I don't have. So many things I don't have. Therefore, I have to work towards gaining it. Very clear. But the gain here is praptasya praptihi. Gaining that which is already gained. Gaining that which is already gained. I want to write something. Where is my pen? I'm looking all over. The table. Messy table. Typical sadhu's table. The whole world is there in it. Where is the pen? Can't find it. Can't find it. Then I look into my pocket. Oh, here it is. Now look at it. This pen was already with me. I only had to recognize that's there in my pocket. I didn't require anything else to know it. It's already there on the. Therefore, this is called praptasya prapti, gaining what I already have. Whereas the money, etc., what I don't have. Therefore, apraptasya prapti, gaining what I don't have, requires action. I have to earn that money, make that money. I have to work for my fitness. I have to find a partner. I need to do all that. That is called apraptasya prapti, gaining what I didn't have. But the pen in my pocket, this is praptasya prapti, gaining what I already have. It only calls for recognition. It's already there. I just have to gain it. I just have to recognize it. Therefore, when you say you gain moksha, etc., it is really speaking praptasya prapti, gaining what is already there. Moksha is your swarupa. Your Atma Swarupa is moksha. All you need to do is recognize that. Recognize that I am not this body and mind. I am independent of this body and mind. I am nothing but pure consciousness, which is never bound at any time. Which is never bound at any time. Always free. This is the learning of Advaita Vedanta. To recognize you're already free, you don't have to get a freedom into you. I, the Atma, is already free. Never have I been bound. Freedom is my Swarupa. I just have to recognize that. Therefore, he says, with this attitude, when I live a life, your mind gets the necessary preparation, samatvam ityadi, and with that, when you expose yourself to the teaching, naturally the teaching works in you. Knowledge happens and you are free. Therefore, mokshakyam padam gacchanti iti. How will I know whether it is clear for me? Somebody can ask that question. I normally would like to answer that saying, well, when you don't get this doubt, you know it is clear. But then that can have its own problems. Someone who doesn't know anything also can say, Swamiji, I don't have any doubt. Someone who knows everything may not have a doubt. Someone who doesn't understand much also may not have a doubt. Okay. Therefore, Krishna puts it slightly differently. Yada te moha kalilam buddhihi vyatitirashyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya cha shrutasya cha. Says, yada te moha kalilam. Okay. This moha kalilam, this delusion. Moha is not just longing for something. Okay, deluded thinking is moha. Born of ignorance. All moha is born of ignorance. Because if you are clear cut about something, you would not be deluded about it. Therefore, that deluded thinking, which is born of avidya, ignorance, yada buddhi vyatihi tarishyati, when the buddhi crosses it over. Now, how are you going to cross over moha? You are crossing over avidya, ignorance. Therefore, when you gain knowledge, tyartha, and how do you know you gain the knowledge? Tada then gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha nirvedam gantasi. Gantasi. You will gain a great dispassion. Nirveda. Towards what? Shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. To what you have heard and what you have yet to hear. Meaning, there is no more. You can live with your ignorance, in other words. Swamiji, I could always do that. No. The moment you understand that my problem is samsara is because of self-ignorance, I am thirsting to know. So who is a good student? One who has this thirst for knowledge, this jnana, this passion for knowing the truth. That person is a good student. Not necessarily someone who understands Sanskrit well. Though it's a good thing to know Sanskrit. It's a good thing to know. Because the texts are in Sanskrit, will help. But knowing Sanskrit is not the qualification. Do you have this passion to know? I have that. So when will this passion go away? If you are a Viveki, your Viveka thinking is clear. Atma Anatma is thinking is clear. You have Vairagya towards everything else, and you know that moksha is the ultimate goal. You have Samadama, etc., etc. And that passionate mumukshatum is there. Then you always want to know more, know more, know more. One class is not enough. I want to attend one more. Naturally. The passion can go all the way and think, forget everything else. I want this and I'm going to give up everything and do only this. Can go to that extent also. Such people will get it. Definitely. Without a doubt. Then what? When that passion is fulfilled. When that passion is fulfilled, that's okay. Hey, you know there is one more text on Vedanta. ठीक है, बाद में देख लेगा. Why? What is it going to talk about? I am Sachidananda. What else is going to talk about? It can at the most be a scholarly curiosity. Can be a scholarly curiosity. Oh, a new text, I have not heard that before. Let me hear it. Let me see what it is about. That's good. It's a scholarly curiosity. But otherwise, no. You study one more text or one less text, it doesn't matter because you know the truth. The truth is clear. What that book is writing about, I can tell you that. I can tell you what's written in that book. And if it's a modern author, I can tell you what he should be writing. Why? Because I am Sachidananda, it is so clear. That is why he says there is Vairagya towards Shrotavyasya Shrutasya. It is here that you know the truth. Of course, for that, one needs to start with that passion. Passion may not be the starting point. Many of us, speaker included, started out of curiosity. Just curiosity, what is this about culture, etc. What is Indian heritage, what is our culture? It started like that because we are all brought up with secular, liberal upbringing. So we are not very keen about all this. But there was a curiosity. We have heard the stories of Mahabharata, etc. So what exactly did Krishna tell Arjuna? There's a curiosity. So he attended some class. And in the process, the passion develops. And believe me, once that passion develops, it swallows up all other passions. You will still take care of things. Still take care of your family, your responsibilities. That you don't have to be worried about. That if this passion is there, I won't take care of that. No, you will take care of it. Been there, done that. Okay, I have done that. We have taken care of things. All the teachers whom I know have done that. Okay. But this passion to know, if that is there, you will know. In fact, in the Mundaka Upanishad, he says that just by listening to a lot of Vedanta, you may not be clear about it. Just by doing a lot of tapas, you may not be clear about it. Like this, he goes on enumerating lots of things which are necessary, but he says just because of that, you may not be clear. Then when will you be clear? When you choose moksha over everything else. Then it will be clear. That means that passion has to be there. To be passionate about knowing the truth. And once that passion is there, then how do you know the truth? The passion has been fulfilled. You will know it. You are very hungry. And there is a huge spread in front of you. Do you not know when your hunger is satisfied? When you are full, when another morsel cannot go in, you know, I am full. I don't need anything more. At least for the next 4 hours. You know that yourself. Similarly, when do you know the truth? When this passion has been fulfilled. I know it. It's all clear. Crystal clear. That's what he's saying here, okay? That you will have that nirvedam towards what is said and heard. Okay. Then one more verse highlighting this. Shruti vitpratipannate yadhastasyasi nishala Samadau achala buddhi tadha yogam avapsyasi. Says Shruti vipratipanna te. Your mind which is Shruti vipratipanna. Remember the olden times. Okay? Mahabharata is at least minimum. The date would be anywhere between 1500 BC to 3000 BC. Okay? That time all this media and advertisement, propaganda, all this was not there those days. But the Shruti presented, the first section of the Veda presented lot of attractive things for you to desire. Hey, you want a lot of wealth? Kubera Tulyaha, if you want to become, here, do all these things. Okay. You want that? You want a beautiful partner in your life? Do this. You want, so like this the Shruti presented. Nowadays you don't have to go to the Shruti to understand all this. Why? The media is there, advertisement is there, everyone is clicking. Yeah, taking the remote and clicking 1 to 400, 500 and 500 to 1. And all the advertisements are there for you to see what is there, what is not there. Desires keep cropping up. And I start chasing. I never knew I had this desire until I saw that ad. Until I saw that ad, I didn't have the desire. I am happy with my simple pen. No, but suddenly a new pen is presented. This is great. This is the pen that experts use, scholars use, etc., etc., etc. It can write so many miles. Write so many miles, I don't know why I want to write miles of it. I hardly write a few pages a week anyway. But whatever. You present it. Yes, okay. Desire. Why that desire? I didn't know I had this desire. How come this desire sprung up? It is not need identification, it is creating desires in you. Why? Because you have a sense of finitude. Because you have a sense of finitude, you want Ananda. You don't know how you are going to get Ananda. Therefore, you think all this, the way the media presents it, the way the Shruti has presented it, the first section of the Veda has presented, you think you will be happy by gaining it. Some momentary happiness you will get. After that, what? After that, it's commonplace. After that, it's commonplace. What can a cross pen do that this cannot do? Something, the smoothness of writing with a cross. Yeah, I know. Smooth, nice. That this, if you lose, you don't feel anything about it. If you lose a cross pen, if you lose a cross pen, what happens? Not only will you be unhappy at losing, but because you have come to a Vedanta class where you attended how you have to be self-aware and awareful of what you are doing, and you will blame yourself for not being awareful enough and losing that pen. One of the fringe benefits of coming to a Vedanta class. Okay. All these things come only because of your sense of finitude. Hey, if you want to use a cross pen and you can afford it easily, please use. I have nothing against it. Somebody has presented me one and is lying down somewhere. So it's okay. If you want to use it, use it. No problems. I am not against you using an item of luxury. Anyway, what is luxury is debatable. So it's a big deal. But the idea is this, that all these things hook you, and your mind is going all over there. That mind that has been running over, yada stayasi nischala, when it remains rooted in yourself, when it remains samadhau achala buddhihi, firmly established in your self-knowledge. I am Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Sachidananda Swarupoham. This, very clear. Don't think that Samadha or Achala Buddhi you have to be sitting in Samadhi. Okay? Meditative practice helps owning up this knowledge. We'll come to that later. But Samadhi is also a word for the Atma. Where the mind is resolved is called Samadhi. Where is your mind resolved? In the Atma only. Where else can it be resolved? Therefore, Samadhau, meaning in the Atma when the mind is resolved, meaning the mind is Buddhi stayasi nischala. In this knowledge of the self, when your mind remains, he says, Buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. Then you have gained this yoga, this knowledge. Here yoga is used in the sense of knowledge, not anything else. Then he says, you are fine. The knowledge is clear to you. This knowledge is clear. So if you have doubts of when, you will know, here it is. Okay. With that, the main teaching of the second chapter is over. Any questions or clarifications you have before we go to the next topic? Is there any questions or clarification? Shoot now. Now is the time to shoot.
I have a question.
Shoot. Who is speaking?
This is Mahesh here.
Hi Mahesh, bolo.
This illusion which he speaks about in the 50-second text.
Because you have to speak a bit louder. It's not very clear.
This illusion which he refers to in the 50-second para, what is this illusion which he is referring to?
What should be?
What is the illusion which he refers to? It's not illusion, it's illusion.
In the 52nd verse?
50-second, yes, just what we discussed.
Yeah. The delusion is about everything. Who am I? What is this world? What is it that will give me a lasting happiness? What is bondage? What is moksha? What is freedom? You are deluded about everything. Isn't it? A mithya world we take as real. The limitless awareness we take as finite entity. Because what is this? What is the subject matter that we are studying up to now, by the way?
Now ordered the squeeze bomb.
What is the subject matter that we have been studying? Huh? What is that?
Then I have ordered in Amazon that.
Sorry, you should speak up a bit louder than that.
Swamiji, it is from Ashok Subramaniam. It's a wrong sound coming in.
What sound is coming in?
So from the audience, Ashok Subramaniam mic has picked up.
No, now you are speaking clearer. Yeah, louder. That's good. Look at it. The subject matter of the Gita is moksha, Atma Jnanam. There is no other subject matter. There is only one subject matter, Atma Jnanam. To help Atma Jnanam, there is something called handling your mind. Atma Jnanam is Brahma Vidya, handling your mind is Yoga Shastra. That's all the subject matter is. Therefore, when you are saying you are deluded about the subject matter. That's what he is talking about. The delusion with respect to what is the nature of the Atma. My finitude is the problem. Recognize the problem. Problem is not this or that. Remember, right in the beginning I said, there are a lot of topical problems that will come up. Day-to-day problems. Coronavirus, day-to-day problems. We are already winning the battle. Big deal. It's a topical problem. Terrorism, topical problem. Other health issues, topical problem. But the topical problem triggers off in me the thinking about the fundamental problem about who am I and what am I. The problem of finitude, the problem of my existential issues. Of purposelessness in life, of birth and death. Where have I come from? Where am I going? This fundamental issue is the subject matter of the Gita. In other words, my bondage as a human being and my freedom that I seek. Therefore, that is what we are dealing with in the Gita. Therefore, when we say a delusion, etc., we are talking about this, the normal thinking that every human being has. I am this much only. I am like this only. That is delusion. Because remember one thing, the Gita is not an academic study. The Gita, the Upanishad, in fact Vedanta, what goes in the name of Vedanta is not an academic study. It's a study concerning your life. You. The subject matter is you. Your delusions, your wrong thinking about yourself. Therefore, that is what is being dealt with. Therefore, when you are using the word knowledge, we are not talking about your knowledge of physics, chemistry, etc. They are all useful. We are talking about self-knowledge. Knowledge of you, world and God. The underlying reality on between all the three. That's what we are talking about. Otherwise, it will be like after the whole Ramayana is over, there is this Kathakar. He was talking about the glories of Rama, the story of Rama and the whole stories. Saptaha was going on. And there was one guy who was very regular. Others would come and go, but this guy was there every day right in the front seat. So when the whole Saptaha was over, the Panditji asked him, "Sir, you have been sitting here, my salutation to you, you are like Hanuman. Every day from the first, before I started you are there and you have waited for me to get up before you get up. Your devotion is admirable. Is there any question you want to ask me?" This Swamiji, there was one doubt I had. What is that? You mentioned two people, Rama and Ravana. Ah, yes. You also mentioned a class called Rakshasa. My question is, Rama is Rakshasa or Ravana is Rakshasa? Are you getting it? What is the subject matter? Similarly here, what is the subject matter? Atma Jnanam. It's quite possible that some of you may have missed the first few lectures and therefore this doubt is coming up. I don't blame you all. I'm not ridiculing you all either. Okay, I'm just telling a story to illustrate something. Okay, but if you have missed it, go and listen to my introductory talks when I'm talking about the fundamental problem. The last couple of verses in the first chapter and the first few verses of the second chapter. That will clarify what is the problem that Arjuna had, what is the problem that the Gita is solving. The Gita is not a book on psychology or management or something to solve your day-to-day issues. No. Though there are enough to be applied for Indian ethos and management. I have done that in corporates. That's a different story. That's a different story. The fundamental issue in the Gita is about samsara, your problem of finitude, of existential issues. And that is what we are trying to solve. And if you don't understand the problem, you'll be like this guy who attended my talks. He was not very keen. He came only because his wife was coming and he wanted to come along with his wife. I don't know why. Probably he thought, okay, I better keep an eye on him because that time, this was 30 years ago when I was much younger than what I am. He's a young sadhu, so better I go with my wife. Probably, I don't know. Okay. Are you all hearing me or not hearing me?
Yes.
You are hearing, no? Because I saw a message. My thing is not muted, it is on. Yeah. Okay. So, he came. And at the end of it, he is telling me, you Vedantins, you create problems, imaginary problems, and solve them. No, what to tell him? So I laughed. With him, I also laughed. Didn't answer. No point. No point. Therefore, get understanding the understanding of the problem. What is the problem that we are dealing with in the Gita? Not how to fight the virus. Though I can talk a lot about that. That's a different thing. That is my knowledge of your mind mastery and knowledge of health issues and knowledge of immunity, knowledge of energy work. Because of all that, I can tell you a few things about it. No, by no means the last word. But I can tell you a few things. That's a different thing altogether. That's topical, day-to-day issues. A small virus. What do you do? Yeah, that's all there is there. That's not what the Gita is about, meant for. How to be a better human being? One another person came and told me, Swamiji, after coming to Gita, I become a better human being. I said, no, you are supposed to be a better human being and therefore come to the Gita. If you are not coming to the Gita to become a better human being, read some books on psychology, self-management, etc., you will become a very good human being. Some on ethics, etc. Read that, you will become a good human being. After that, come and study what the Gita, the problem that Gita is solving. Being a good human being is fringe benefit. In fact, they expected that anybody who is studying the Gita will be a good human being. That's a given. So you don't study the Gita to be a good human being or to be a competent human being. You are expected to have some competency, some refinement in terms of Karma Yoga we will do so that you can understand moksha, because moksha requires some additional refinement of your competency in terms of ethics, etc. So we'll do some refinement. Samjhe, I am a balanced human being. You are supposed to be balanced. If you are not balanced, go to a psychologist, go to a therapist. Yeah, if you are balanced, we will enhance that with samatvam, etc. So that there is an extra balance necessary to understand moksha, Atma Jnana. So we are only doing enhancement work here. But the problem the Gita is solving is the fundamental nature of who you are and how to deal with that. Self-ignorance is a problem of my existential issues. My problem, my fundamental problem as a human being. My fundamental problem. The problem of purposelessness, for example, is not connected with a role. The problem of how to have better relationship with my wife is connected with your role as a husband. But the problem of purposelessness is not connected with a role. The problem of birth and death is not connected with a role. The problem of isolation and loneliness is not connected with a role. These are the issues, fundamental issues. Born, this is what is born of your sense of finitude, because I don't know what I really am. I don't know, I am limitlessness itself. Therefore, I have taken myself as a finite being. Taking myself as a finite being, these problems are inevitable. That is called delusion. The saying, I have all these problems, is a delusion. Born of avidya, self-ignorance. Therefore, the solution is in terms of self-knowledge, not anything else. I am not going to give you a purpose in life. Discover your purpose. That you can do. Explore your options, discover your purpose in life. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. What are your priorities? You find out yourself. If you want my help, I will give you. That's a different thing. But the absolute purpose of moksha, the ultimate purpose of moksha, that is what Vedanta talks about. Remember what I said? 100 desires. At the back of that 100 desires is half a dozen priorities. What is behind that priorities? The need for moksha. That is the problem the Gita is talking about. You solve that problem, then you can live happily, whatever the issues are. Whatever you have to tackle, you can tackle. What you don't want to tackle, you can let it be. Not an issue. No big deal. Why? Living and dying doesn't become big deal. Living and dying. Purposelessness doesn't become a big deal. What are you? Mastram Baba. क्या कर रहा है? कुछ नहीं कर रहा है. मस्त राम जी रहा. Don't you have purpose in life? Fulfilled. Then fulfilled. The fundamental purpose is moksha anyway. Everyone is born to fulfill that. You miss the boat, that's a different thing, because you are running around with other purposes. making yourself useful. Why? Because I feel useless otherwise. I feel useless. Therefore, I have to poke my nose in everyone else's. Look at all the media posts. Everyone is feeling useless sitting at home. Therefore, everyone has an idea of what the government should be doing. Government should do this. Modi should have declared this. He should have done that. He should have cut down taxes here. Why didn't you stand for election and become the Prime Minister, Baba? I can't do all that. You can't do all that, then shut up and keep quiet. Let him do. You elected him now. I didn't vote for him. Majority elected him now. He is not my Prime Minister. Majority is elected. He is your Prime Minister, whether he wants it or not. What he does will affect you. If he passes a law, you better obey. Or go behind the bars. Simple as that. And that is true for any Prime Minister elected anywhere. Because we are living in a democracy. No, Swamiji, I believe in revolution. Please do. The days of armed revolutions are over, okay? That was there. Who was the last great revolutionary anyway? Who was there? Che Guevara, during my teenage years. After that, which revolutionary is there anyway? All revolutionaries have become dictators. All the revolutionaries in the world have become dictators. We cannot have a real armed revolution anymore. Those days are gone. Why? Because the amount of weaponry that's available is only annihilation that will happen. Therefore, those days are gone. Therefore, now what is available is only democracy. Or you can create some problems here and there by your ill-advised protest, which you are allowed to do anyway. That's all. Therefore, all these are topical problems. Topical problems. Because I feel useless, I get involved in all this. Yeah, if you have a passion for it, get involved, do something. Don't sit down and crib. That's my idea. If you can do something about it, do something. At the risk of being redundant, I'll tell you something. Be the change you want to see. Very popular among the liberals. True, be the change. Sitting and talking and posting on Facebook won't make you the change. Do something about it. Do something. Yeah. What is it that you're going to do? And when all the doing is over and done, what is there left in your life? The need for moksha still remains. Therefore, take care of it directly. Take care of it directly, that's what you need. Along with all these other things that you're taking care of, take care of this fundamental need in you. If you do that, you're free. When having this much was said, Arjuna asks a question. This question is introduced, whether it's asked by Arjuna or introduced by Vyasa later. In terms of who really is a wise person, how does he function? Okay? How does he function? Probably. And here what Krishna is doing is, he is painting the goal, the picture of what you can be. Not wise person, someone else. Not a wise person whom you look at, oh, Pujya Swamiji was like that, Swami Chinmayanji was like that, Vivekananda was like that. This is not meant for that. This is meant for what you can be. I want you, like you can be that. That is it. That's what you can be. Therefore, Arjuna, let's listen to Arjuna's question. Arjuna vacha sita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sitadihi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. Arjuna asks, Sita prajnasya ka bhasha. Ka bhasha, what is the description? How do you talk about? Sitaha prajnaha. It's a new word. Krishna has not used it. But remember, Arjuna is exposed to this heritage and this culture. Therefore, he knows some things. One whose prajna, understanding, is very clear, very rooted, very firm. Meaning, I am that limitless consciousness. Nothing can shake that understanding. Nothing that shake that feeling. It fills up my whole being. That is called a sthita prajna. Who is a person in whom this knowledge is full and complete. And very clear. The heart and the head are full of this knowledge. Sthita prajna. Tasya ka bhasha. How will you describe that person? Samadhistasya keshava. What is a samadhi like? Sitadi kim prabhasheta. How does he talk? Kim asita. How does he sit? Vrajeta kim. How does he move about? Tell me, can Krishna really answer this question? Oh, the Sthita Dihi does samadhi for meditation for 1 hour every day. I know people who can sit in samadhi for 3 hours every day, but they are not wise. I know people. In some sadhu traditions, you can get out of the house and be a sadhu only if you can sit and meditate for 3 hours. Then why are they becoming sadhus? So that they will know the truth after samadhi, okay? Therefore, just because you sit in samadhi for 3 hours doesn't mean that you know the truth. Because these traditions are there like that. You can sit in samadhi for 3 hours, then you become a sadhu. Okay? Or, Kim Prabhasheta, how does he talk? His thinking is like quicksilver. He talks like me, fatafat, fast. My students find it difficult to keep track. That means anybody who speaks fast is a wise person. There are people who speak faster than me. Not wise. No. Sthitadi is deliberate, conscious, speaks slowly. That means every Texan should be a wise person. Because by the time the Texan says one word, in the second word you can catch a small nap and get up. With my apologies to the Texans, okay? Okay. Kim Asita, how does he sit? Always Indian style cross-legged. That means everyone who sits cross-legged is a wise person. After my hip injury, I gave up sitting cross-legged. Therefore, my wisdom is gone along with that. Huh? You can't. Vrajeta Kim, how does he walk? He walked the slow, humble walk of a monk. That means if a warrior gets this knowledge and walks like a warrior, he is not a wise person. All his life he has walked like a warrior or a soldier. Half his life he has marched to the sound of drums and bugles. He will not gain knowledge. Why? Because he walks like that. He is not a wise person. Or it can also be interpreted as, does he speak? Kim Prabhashit? Does he speak? Okay. Kim Asita? How does he remain? Kim Brajeta? Does he go around? In short, what Arjuna is asking is some lakshanas, some identifying points about a wise person. Which, as I said, physically there is none. There are no physical indications of a wise person. I have seen on YouTube some masters talking about physical indications. I am sorry, they are wrong. Like people have come and told me, Swamiji, there is so much of tejas on your face. I say, yeah, really? Yeah, this is all your spiritual tejas. I said, no, it's not my spiritual tejas, it's my oily complexion. No spiritual tejas, okay? These are all relative terms. Okay? Swamiji, you are happy all the time. Yeah, I know a master who acts like that. Anything you ask him, why are you being a grinning gorilla here? This is a serious question. Swamiji, I lost someone near and dear. You're saying you lost someone near and dear, he doesn't even have empathy. He's laughing because he's a wise person, no? Ananda. Ridiculous. All these behaviors are ridiculous. Or there's another. After wisdom, I could not relate to anything. I could not relate to my mom. Why? Because this wisdom said, I am Brahman. So what is your mom? She's also Brahman only, no? She doesn't know. Okay. You know, she doesn't know. She's also Brahman. So why can't you relate? I couldn't relate to my business partner. Eh? What is the problem? If after wisdom Krishna and Arjuna could fight a battle, Krishna had all this wisdom, did he not relate to his mother? Did he not relate to his wife? Wives, sorry, plural. Wives. Well, this is ridiculous. People don't know what they are talking about. Or you want to appear different. For what? Wisdom should rest lightly on your shoulders. That's important. The only change I am in, wear these robes. Why? It's a declaration. If anyone wants to learn, a monk is available to learn. It's a heritage, it's an Indian heritage, more than 6,000 years old heritage of sannyasa. If you can preserve a 200-year-old building in the name of heritage, I would love to preserve a tradition which is lasting more than 6,000 years by wearing the robes. It's an indication of a tradition. That's all. You mean to say my words won't be valid if I wear instead of a saffron robes, I'm wearing black or a black suit, a 3-piece suit? It's the same. Therefore, there are no physical indications for a wise man. A wise person does not have relationship issues. That because of wisdom I couldn't relate. Of course not. You can relate better actually. You can relate in freedom. Maybe one day I'll talk about that at some camp or something. About relating in freedom. Freedom in relationships. Yeah. With this great freedom you can relate. Beautiful it can be. So if you hear all these things, understand that that's not correct. That's not correct. It's not true. Therefore, Krishna goes about to explain what the heart of a wise person is. Not meant for checking up somebody else. What is the heart of a wise person? The one who takes himself as Ananda or herself by himself all the time. There's a problem of language. One who takes herself as nothing but Ananda. What is that person's heart like? What is the thinking, feelings like? Otherwise, if you want the signs of a wise person, there's only one sign for a wise man. Jnanam tu lakshanam. Jnaninaha lakshanam jnanameva. Wisdom alone is the lakshana, indication of a wise person. There cannot be any other indication. Does he know the truth? Does he not know the truth? Now don't ask me, Swamiji, how will I know? You won't. It takes a wise person to recognize another wise person. Believe me. Another wise person may recognize. It is like two experts in a field meeting. They exchange pleasantries, etc. They have sized up each other. They know this guy has got some expertise. They know that. Similarly here, two wise people meet and they know. Doesn't require much. Some interaction, that's enough. That's enough. So, if you're really asking what is the indication of a wise person, it is knowledge, self-knowledge, and that alone. Nothing else. Based on that, here Krishna is giving a few signs describing the heart of a wise person. How will that be? Any questions on this? Or we are ready to see what a wise person is like? Are we ready to see that?
question. Yeah, ready to see something.
Any questions?
No question.
No question. Great. Then we will see Krishna's answer, okay, in terms of who is a wise person. But for that, we'll have to wait until next Saturday. I don't want to exceed the time. I know you all are at home, but still you all are busy with a lot of things, so I'm not exceeding the time. We will continue with this next class, and